there, welcome to GivReads. My name is Andrew Givler. I'm an author, YouTuber, booktuber. I don't think it's actually in that order, but I like to stay busy and I use my time poorly. This is the channel where we talk about storytelling, writing, everything in between books, movies, music, whatever captures my fancy. If you guys are new around here, do me a favor, make sure to hit the like button. That really helps. Also, hit the subscribe button. We're working on growing this channel, getting it partnered, doing all that cool stuff. So your guys' support in the early days really helps YouTube know it's worth the time. Also, I know my background behind me is getting weirder. Just ignore it. I had to film a video facing this way. It's a whole thing. It'll be gone soon. Don't worry about it. That's from my other job, okay? So today I want to cover a topic about reading and writing that I saw my good buddies Tutor Ramble cover, which they took from a thing from another YouTube booktuber called Bookborn, which she, in her original video, dove into a whole bunch of scientific studies that claim that spoilers aren't bad for you. Well, actually, that spoilers don't ruin books. And my good buddies Tutor Ramble, they talked about it too. They obviously very strongly disagree with that. They think spoilers ruin books. I want to talk about that a little bit too, because I'm interested by this idea, and I know some people who would agree with this. I don't personally agree with it, but let's break it down a little bit. Now, there are a whole bunch of studies that Bookborn found that sort of facilitated all this, and I'm not going to go through all of them. I will link some of them in the description below. One of the big ones, though, that I saw was from the University of California, which said spoilers make you enjoy stories more. And that was actually what made me decide that I wanted to talk about this too, because I agree, but I think that spoilers need to be earned, and it's the earning that makes it more enjoyable. What the heck does that mean? We're gonna talk about it. I'm gonna give you some concrete examples because I'm a handsome young gentleman. But before we do that, one other thing I want to caveat, little warning. Also, I think this is very interesting that a whole bunch of like scientific studies are trying to study art. Science studying art is, I think, difficult because it's sort of like oil and water. They're not the same thing, but sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. I think music is science and art often, like actual like music notes. Architecture is science and art. Painting is a little bit science and art. Writing is more art than science. Math is more science than art. I don't know why we're listing all these things, but anywho, I'm intrigued by this. We're gonna see if we can break it down. Second of all, for my example, I'm gonna be using one of my favorite movies of all time because I think that you can use sort of movie and storytelling interchangeably here. We're gonna be using Hot Fuzz. So if you've never seen Hot Fuzz, there will be some spoilers from Hot Fuzz. I think it's only fair that I warn you that I'm gonna use spoilers to talk about spoilers. But this movie came out in like 2008. So if you haven't seen it at this point, that's on you. If I bring up any other spoilers, I will also try to warn you, but you know, proceed at your own risk. So basically the thesis is spoilers make you enjoy a story more. Now, I think a lot of people are immediately like, how dare you? I don't want to agree with that. That's awful. And I disagree. I think spoilers do make you enjoy a story more, but I think that the enjoyment comes from experiencing it twice. So in all of the greatest movies with let's say twists, spoilers, tension, surprise endings, crazy things that happen. I'm thinking of M. Night Shyamalan. I'm thinking of The Matrix. I'm thinking of Game of Thrones. I'm thinking of Dresden Files. I'm thinking of Among Us. I don't know. I'm thinking of that. Lies of Locke Lamora. Many other, I mean, most stories have a twist of some sort, even if it's a big twist or a little twist. If you know it beforehand, the tension is eradicated, right? I know for me that if I figure something out too early, it often takes me out of a story, right? If I'm pretty sure that I know who the conspirator is and I see it and it's too obvious, then the tension is ruined. Spoilers, I think, deflate some of the tension that exists because when a writer tries to tell you a story, whether it's a movie, a book, anything in between, they have a perception they want you to have at a certain part of the story, right? That's sort of the tension. The narrator of a story, like when you write in first person, one of the reasons I love first person is because first person has limited scope of knowledge, right? The single narrator can only tell you what they know, right? Which is an important distinction a lot of time. Likewise, third person that's not omniscient, they can only tell you what the character you're following knows, or perhaps what's happening right around them, but not what's happening at the greater world at large. I prefer that because I like that perspective, because that means when you're writing, if you're thinking about it from that point of view, you're also probably thinking about what does your audience know, right? What does the person reading my book know? Because you want to make sure that you're explaining things properly and you're setting up the story. Stories are a little bit like Wild West shanty towns. No, not shanty towns. What are they called? With the facades. What are they called? They're just called facades. Okay, I thought there was like a cool term for it, but whatever. They look one way when you're looking at them this way, and then when you get behind them, you see that the front is fake, right? And that we've been going a different direction the whole time. That is catharsis. That is the thing that gives you the tingles and makes you go, oh! And if you lose that, I think that's a killer portion of your read of a story or your experiencing of a story. And I think that losing that is a problem. It's bad. It's negative. It affects things. However, I do not disagree that a spoiler alert makes you enjoy a story more. And let's talk about that. So, like I said at the beginning of the video, I think you have to earn that. So, warning, another spoiler, we're gonna talk about The Sixth Sense. Again, this movie came out in like 1999, so if you haven't seen it, go see it. The Sixth Sense is incredible to watch twice. A story that revolves around a spoil, like more twist, more thriller oriented or something like that, it's worth watching twice if it's done well, because the first time you watch it, as I said, the author or the writer, they have you in this perspective of like, this is what you know in this place and this is it, which means that when things are presented to you, you're going to take them a certain way. And that's deliberate, right? I want you to be suspicious of Jimmy. I want you to be suspicious of Timmy. Whoever. That means that everything that shows up, you're going to be looking at it like, Timmy. It's Timmy. Or Jimmy. I said two different names. So, but you get the point, right? The Sixth Sense, right? What's wrong with the kid? Why is he haunted? What's wrong with the kid? Why is he haunted? Why does he see dead people? Can he be helped? Thank God that Bruce Willis is there to protect him, right? Bruce Willis is dead. Right? So The Sixth Sense is about a kid who sees dead people and he's tortured by them. And Bruce Willis is this sad loser of a therapist who's going through some tough times. I think his wife is leaving him and he's really, really sad and he's trying to figure out how to help this kid. But in reality, the kid is helping him. Watching the movie the first time, you spend 98% of the movie being like, man, I'm really glad that Bruce Willis is kind of able to overcome this thing, and when will he realize that the kid can really see dead people? Because it's important, I really want to help this kid because this poor kid's being tormented, right? If you watch The Sixth Sense again, the little bang that happens that is actually him dying, all of the things that are there, you see them and you get to be in the know. And you go, oh, I know what's happening. I know how that happened. I know how that happened. That right there is what makes you enjoy the story more. Because now you see the whole picture. You're not being lied to the second time you watch it. You're in on the lie. And that's a big deal. Let me give you another example. I said we were going to talk about Hot Fuzz because I think Hot Fuzz is probably the movie that is better the second time, even though it's great the first time, don't get me wrong. Because one of the things that they do is the entire way through the movie, they make fun of you for not knowing where the movie's going. If you need a recap, if it's been a long time, Simon Pegg plays like the greatest police officer in all of England. He's so good at his job that the rest of his bosses don't want to deal with him, and they send him to this tiny little town where there's no crime just so that like he stops making the rest of them look bad. While he's there, he uncovers this series of weird murders that everybody else says are accidents, but he doesn't think they are. Turns out there's this whole cabal going on. They're murdering the townspeople so that the town stays like nice and pretty, and so they can win Village of the Year or whatever it is. The whole way through the movie, they make fun of you for not knowing what's going on. So let me give you an example. Brilliant writing, brilliant scene. When Simon Pegg first moves to the town, he goes to check in at the hotel. The old lady who works at the hotel, she doesn't recognize it's him. She's working on a crossword puzzle. And then they have this exchange back and forth where he calls her a hag and she says, excuse me?
Well, actually, I could probably make my own way up. Hag.
I beg your pardon?
Evil old woman considered frightful or ugly. It's 12 down.
Oh, bless you.
The woman he's talking to is one of the killers, right? And she looks down and she looks at me and she goes, oh, thank you. And then she says, fascist. And he goes, excuse me, because he's a cop. And, she's like, number 7 down. And she like gives the definition of a fascist.
I'm Joyce Cooper. I trust you had a pleasant trip. Fascist.
I beg your pardon?
System of government characterized by extreme dictatorship. 7 across.
Oh, I see. It's fascism.
Fascism. Wonderful.
Later, when they have their gunfight, she calls him a fascist and opens fire on him. He calls her a hag, right? It's a throwback, it's a setup, it's a joke. But she is like an old evil crone who's killing people. And he is like, well, it doesn't quite work as well that way. But you get the point, right? That's being done the whole time. If you knew the first time you watched the movie, that enjoyment's not there. Because the first time, it's still funny. You're like, oh, they misunderstood the crossword and it's kind of awkward. Haha. The second time you watch it and you're like, oh, I know what's happening. Another example of this in the movie is every time that the council meets, they all echo when everybody says the greater good, the greater good. Throughout the whole movie, all the different members of the evil council who are murdering people will often say the greater good, or if somebody else says the greater good, anybody who's one of the killers will say the greater good.
Greater good.
The greater good.
How can this be for the greater good?
The greater good.
Again, if you're in on the joke, the first time you watch this, you might catch that, you might enjoy that, but you will enjoy it more the second time because of you're in the know. being in the know enriches good stories, especially twist-oriented stories. Look, there are some stories where the spoiler doesn't matter, right? You're watching a rom-com and is she gonna choose this handsome guy or the nerdy handsome guy who's secretly also very handsome? That doesn't have maybe the same restriction on secrecy. But to say that knowing everything up front doesn't damage the story, I think completely disagrees, because you get to experience the story twice. You get to experience the same story twice. And only can you do that by not knowing anything and then finding it out and being in on the joke when you watch it again. I love watching Hot Fuzz with somebody who's never seen it before. Oh, it brings me so much joy. Seeing that journey where they earn to be in on the joke, I think that's a big deal. Now, obviously, there's a lot of research that goes into this. I know some people who won't read things unless they know the end, because they want to know it's worth their time. They don't like to feel like they were cheated. They don't like to feel like they spent a lot of time reading a book because they're a slower reader or they're not as into it. And in the end, they were unsatisfied. It was a waste. I kind of understand that, but not really. I think that you lose something when you do that. And that's why I think I try to take extra care when I talk about spoilers on the channel, when I talk about them with my friends and anywhere in between. It's why I used examples of movies that have been out for like at least a decade, if not more, was to minimize the impact it might have on somebody watching this video, because I think that experience the story the way the author intended and then experiencing the way the author really intended is incredibly special. And it can only be done twice. The third time, it's different, right? And from then on, it's different. Anyway, that's been me sitting on my lawn talking about spoilers. I would love to know what you guys think. Do you guys care about spoilers? Do you want to know what happens in a book or a story before you read it, watch it, etc.? Leave a comment down below. I will be reading them, as I always do. In the meantime, thank you so much for sticking around. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you're new, like button, etc., the YouTube things. Check out my books in the description below, and we'll see you in the next one.